This is a brief overview of the Wootility. On the left hand side you can see 4 profiles. There's 1 digital profile and 3 analog profiles. You can switch in between by clicking them or by changing the profile on your keyboard. On the left bottom side we have 4 icons. First one being if there's update available. If it's yellow means there's an update for the Wootility or for the keyboard. The second one, if the keyboard is connected. If it's green, it means it's connected. And the last 2 is your profile manager and your general settings. Let's jump to the digital profile. This is the profile that only works as a keyboard and you will always be able to trust and switch back to with the mode button on your keyboard. Here we can change the individual RGB colors by simply choosing a color and clicking on one of the buttons. It will instantly show a preview on your keyboard, so it's easy to know if you like the color or not. Instead of clicking, you can also choose to click and hold the button down and drag your mouse over all the different buttons. If there's a color you really like, you can choose to save that color in your color picker on the bottom. Simply right click on the color picker, choose your color, and right click it again, and it's saved. Now you can just left click on that color and continue using it. Of course, you can also choose just one of the default colors you have on the bottom, or change them to your own preference and change the colors on the keyboard. If there's a color on the keyboard you like and you want to use again quickly, then you can also choose to right click on the color you like and then continue dragging or clicking those colors on the other keys. Just don't forget, save to keyboard. Some of the other cards you'll also see back in other profiles are the global keyboard settings and digital settings. The global keyboard settings are settings that will change for every profile, and all the other settings are saved per profile. In the global keyboard settings, you can change the mode key, which is the most right top key on your keyboard, or you can change one of the analog profile keys. Right now by default it's mapped on left down right arrow, but you could also map it on F1, F2, F3 if that's more comfortable. With the digital settings you can change the activation point from 1.5 to 3.6 mm. This will have no influence on your analog range and will only decide when your keyboard will give keyboard input. Keep this in mind for the analog profiles. And at the end, of course, never forget to save the keyboard. Now let's jump into one of the analog profiles. As you can see here, I've already set up my RGB colors, and now we get into the really interesting part. This is where analog and all the magic happens. Gamepad key bindings. Basically, you can choose between X input and direct input. Now, X input is kind of your bread and butter. This is what you'll use for most of the games and what you'll want to always adjust to your likings. You can see here in this overview, these are the most important keys: the left joystick, right joystick, and the left and right trigger. These are your analog keys, which you can use for games. If you want to bind one of the other Xbox control buttons, or in other words X input, then you can expand the view and change them also. We recommend in general you want to change the left joystick or one of the triggers. To change the binding, it's very simple. You can bind the left joystick to WASD, for example, as so. I click on the box, I press the key I want, and I continue so until I have all my keys bound. If you want to remove a key, just simply right click and it will automatically remove the key binding. When we scroll a bit down, we can see the advanced gamepad settings. This is what we generally refer to as the analog curve. Now this is a bit more advanced. We recommend you go to our knowledge base to find more information about how to set this up. In general, you're pretty good if you choose either the linear curve or the aggressive curve for most games. Right next to the advanced gamepad settings, we can see the digital settings and global keyboard settings again. These are the same as the digital profile, but in this case, on the analog profile, digital settings are optional. So remember, this is your keyboard input and where you want it to activate, and you can change the activation point anywhere you want. This will have no influence on our analog range and have no influence on your analog input in general. You can choose to disable or enable the digital keys depending on the game and your own preference. If you disable it, you won't be able to type, you won't be able to use it as a regular keyboard, and it will just be the controller. If you keep it enabled, it means it's a keyboard and a controller at the same time, and this is something to keep in mind when you're setting up a profile for a game. When you scroll down a bit further, you can find DKS, which stands for double keystroke. Basically, you can bind 2 actions on a single key. Now this is still very experimental and it's an advanced future. We recommend you go to the knowledge base to find out more information. And at the end, of course, never forget to save the keyboard. Now you know how to set up an analog profile. Now let's take a look how you can save and share them. You can go to the profile manager, which is on the left bottom of the Wootility. You can save a profile by first giving the name, then the description, and then choosing which analog profile you want to save. After you've pressed save, you'll find it in your profile manager on the bottom. Now you can load the profile to any of your analog profiles, whenever you want. If you press the load button, it will give you a pop-up, and you can choose if you want to load the colors, gamepad bindings, or double keystroke to load to any of the 4 profiles. Now obviously in the digital profile, you can only change the colors. Just press load and it will go. To share a profile, you can press the share icon on the most right side of the profile. You just wait a second and then it will copy a code to your clipboard. You can give this code to somebody else and they can paste it right here at the import profile code and then press import, and it should import the profile into your Wootility. And that's how you can easily use the profile manager. Now finally we have the general settings, which you can find on the left bottom at the gear icon. Here you can do some really general things, as for example disable X input. Now you might want to disable X input because it's giving you weird artifacts or weird things in the game that you don't like. Just keep in mind when you press it, it will close the window and restart your keyboard with the X input disabled. You can also choose to reset all your keyboard settings in here. It will load all the default profiles we had at factory onto your keyboard, and this can help you to get that rainbow color back if you didn't save it already, or just to restore back to a default if there is something weird going on with your settings. If you encounter any problems, don't forget you can go to the knowledge base to get more information, or you can jump on Discord to ask some questions to your fellow members, or just send us an email and let us know what's going on.